The film opens at 2 a.m. inside a family home where broken glass and untouched food indicate an argument has taken place. Upstairs, paramedic Maddie and her husband Frank sleep uneasily. A smoke alarm jolts Maddie awake. She fiddles with the batteries, but the beeping won't quit. Then the phone rings. It's their 18-year-old daughter Alice. Maddie scolds her for storming off earlier and taking Frank's car. But before she can say much more, Alice hangs up. Frank wakes up and wonders where Alice is. When Maddie calls her back, Alice is frantic and tells her she just hit someone with her car. Maddie orders her to call emergency services, but Alice claims she already has. Maddie knows that means Alice should be on the line with the operator, not her. But Frank insists she stay on the call to guide their daughter through it. The two of them jump into Maddie's car, heading to Hallow Road, Alice's location, which is a 40-minute drive away. Over the phone, Maddie pushes Alice to check the victim. The girl is about Alice's age and not breathing. Maddie coaches her through CPR. Alice tries, but is horrified when she crushes the girl's chest. Against Maddie's training, Frank tells Alice to stop and get back into the car. Alice, harrowed, eventually gives up the CPR and the call ends. The pair try to get back in touch with her, but she doesn't answer. Frank and Maddie squabble. Maddie has started smoking again, just one of the many secrets between the pair that will come into play later on. They eventually get in touch with Alice again, and we get the full story. Alice headed off into the woods, unwilling to return home after the explosive argument with her parents about her pregnancy. At the same time, she couldn't bring herself to tell her boyfriend the truth, leaving her feeling trapped and with nowhere to go. Over the phone, she admits she's been high on MDMA for the past 4 hours. The accident happened when a girl suddenly ran out into the road and Alice hit her. The situation is a nightmare because not only is she responsible for hitting someone, but she was also under the influence, which could mean severe legal consequences. Her university placement, her year abroad in Australia, her pregnancy, and her entire future now hang in the balance. And atop that, Alice admits she never actually called the police. So Frank hatches a desperate plan. Alice should wait for them. When they arrive, Maddie will drive Alice away, and Frank will stay behind to claim responsibility. Because he is sober, he could pass it off as an accident. The family's anxiety and fear increase through the car journey as they argue. It is revealed that their original argument arose from Alice's pregnancy and her parents' belief that it should be terminated. As the parents race down the road, Alice sees headlights, another car approaching. Frank panics. If anyone else finds Alice with the body, the plan is ruined. He orders her to drag the girl's body into the undergrowth. Terrified, Alice does it, but then she whispers something impossible. The girl's face is changing into hers, then hangs up again. When Alice picks up once more, Maddie and Frank hear a woman's voice. She claims to be passing by with her husband and offers Alice help. But her tone turns probing and menacing, refusing to leave even as Alice begs her to. Maddie speaks to the woman, asking her to leave, and she appears to do so before Alice reveals that the couple has found the body of the girl in the undergrowth. Alice attempts to drive away, and Maddie and Frank are terrified to hear the woman smash through the window of Alice's car. Eventually getting back on the phone, Frank and Alice speak to the woman who, threatening to call the authorities, is dissatisfied by their assertion that the situation is just an accident. The woman also says that the victim is actually alive and is being taken care of by her husband. Frank reveals to the woman that he intended to take the fall for Alice's mistake. The woman acts as though she understands and relates how her and her husband have been atoning for their own sins towards their child for a long time. They allow Frank and Maddie to chat with Alice, who is completely confused at how the girl survived. Maddie tells Alice about how you can make mistakes with this type of thing. Maddie reveals that she has recently quit her job as a paramedic after causing a death by mistaking a pulmonary embolism for a panic attack. Alice tells her parents that she will take responsibility for what she did. Minutes later, Maddie and Frank finally arrive at Hallow Road. Alice's car sits abandoned. Alice and the couple are gone. There's only a body in the undergrowth. Maddie dials emergency services, but Frank stumbles back with a chilling revelation. The corpse is actually Alice. Maddie, refusing to believe it, hangs up on the emergency services. The parents remember Alice's terrified words, that the girl's face had changed to resemble hers. Maddie calls Alice again, and Alice answers. She's alive, or at least she sounds it. But she's now in the hands of the couple. As they drive her deeper into the forest, the woman delivers a sermon of horror. She and her husband will be Alice's parents now. They will correct her, as they have many other girls before her. When they learn she's pregnant, they promise to correct her child as well. Maddie pleads for another chance, but the line dies. Moments later, Frank and Maddie find their path blocked by a police car. The next morning, the official story is laid out by the police. Alice was driving high, crashed, walked around in a daze, and was hit by a car and killed. Her body was dragged off the road, leaving one shoe, and the person who hit her drove off. The parents claimed that the story was impossible because they were talking to Alice on the phone. The police officers put that down to trauma, understandable given the circumstance. This is how the movie ends, but what exactly happened? There are 3 theories, so let's break them down. Number 1, the rational one. This interpretation is less about ghosts and folklore and more about guilt, trauma, and the unbearable weight of parenthood gone wrong. On the surface, the story begins with Alice, high on MDMA, furious after a fight with her parents over her pregnancy. Distraught and driving recklessly, she crashes into a tree stump after swerving at what she thinks is someone in the road. She calls her parents, admits she may have hit someone, and then, before she could do anything, is struck by another car and killed. From this moment forward, Alice is dead, and everything that unfolds afterward is essentially a psychological projection of her parents' grief. Maddie and Frank rush to the scene after learning about the accident. But what the audience sees is not a literal journey. It's a hallucinatory descent into their shared trauma. Maddie, already fragile from past trauma at work and dependent on antidepressants, is emotionally unraveling. She hides her struggles from Frank, including the fact that she quit her job and has become distant and closed off. Both parents are control freaks, but both have different ways of doing things. Frank wants to be hands-on, but Maddie has deprived him of that control by lying to him and hiding secrets. Their fractured marriage mirrors their inability to parent effectively. Frank enables Alice's bad behavior, while Maddie is too strict. Together, they create a home of imbalance and silent resentments. When Alice revealed her pregnancy, they responded with anger, urging her to terminate it. Their words wounded her deeply, making her feel as though she was an unwanted child who had ruined their lives. It was this conflict that drove her from the house and ultimately toward her tragic end. The supposed couple who guide Alice, particularly the kind woman, are not real people. Instead, they are projections of Maddie and Frank's guilt and fractured psyches. Their presence reflects what the parents wish they had done differently, holding Alice accountable with compassion, guiding her through her mistakes. The reveal that Rosamund, Pike, and Rhys, who play Alice's parents, also voice this couple, underlines the symbolism. The heart of Hallow Road is not a supernatural mystery, but a meditation on grief and parental guilt. Once Alice dies, her parents are thrust into the impossible, reconciling their responsibility for her fate. Their imagined conversations with Alice, the surreal imagery, and the eerie couple are all coping mechanisms. They are mental rehearsals of what-ifs, the kind of obsessive replays that haunt grieving parents after tragedy. Maddie in particular embodies the weight of this guilt. Her plea for one more chance reflects every parent's desperate wish to undo mistakes. Their frantic drive through the woods, swerving and panicking, captures their denial. Reality only pierces through when they finally encounter the police, who confirm Alice was hit by a car. The silence that follows encapsulates the crushing finality of loss. Ultimately, none of the supernatural elements are real. Alice was dead the moment the car struck her. The rest of the film is a symbolic unraveling of her parents' grief, an allegory about how guilt reshapes memory and perception. The mystery of the movie is less about what happened to Alice and more about how her parents failed her, how their conflicting parenting styles and emotional fractures left her unsupported, and how denial and trauma distort the mind in moments of crisis. Number 2, an honorable mention. the parents did it. That's actually a fascinating what if, but it doesn't quite hold up under scrutiny. Let's unpack it. The theory goes like this. Alice steals Frank's car and drives into the woods. Maddie and Frank chase after her in their Jeep. Somewhere along the line, Alice tries to flag them down, but they don't see her and hit her, killing her instantly. Maddie, horrified, attempts CPR but fails. Frank, desperate and pragmatic, drags Alice's body off the road, and they flee. Later, racked with guilt and trauma, their minds distort the memory, reworking it into the surreal narrative we watch unfold. The mysterious couple then becomes psychological projections of Maddie's guilt for not saving her daughter. It's dark, it's tragic, and on the surface, it could even explain the fragmented, dreamlike quality of the film. But here's the problem. The logistics don't add up. Cars don't lie. Even a glancing blow with a human body leaves a mark. You can't just run someone over and have your vehicle look showroom fresh the next morning. If Maddie and Frank really had struck Alice, their Jeep would have been a crime scene on wheels. Then there's the matter of the police. Investigators are not exactly amateurs at piecing together vehicular collisions. If Alice had been struck by her parents' vehicle, the cops would have picked up on it immediately. Instead, the film frames Alice's death as the result of her own accident compounded by being hit by another car, not her parents. So while the parents as killers theory adds a grimly poetic twist, it leans too heavily on psychological metaphor without squaring with the physical evidence. Now the spookiest and maybe most fun, reading Hallow Road as a straight-up supernatural story. The story takes place on October 31st, Halloween, or more traditionally, All Hallows' Eve. Folklore tells us this is the night when the veil between the living and the dead thins, allowing spirits to cross into our world. People once lit bonfires and wore masks to protect themselves from these visitors. Alice, however, does none of that. Instead, she drives down an isolated, unmarked road, Hallow Road. On the one night of the year, she is most vulnerable to supernatural interference. It's practically an invitation to the spirit world. Alice thinks she hits a girl with her car, panics, and tries to perform CPR. But when she presses down on the girl's chest, it caves in. Because it wasn't a girl at all, it was a changeling. In Celtic folklore, changelings are decoys left behind by fairies when they abduct humans, often made from enchanted wood or logs. When Alice pressed down, the body collapsed like rotten wood. Terrified, she ran back to her car, believing she had encountered something beyond comprehension. Later, Alice leaves the car again after seeing what she believes are headlights approaching. But these weren't headlights. They were will-o'-the-wisps, also known as fairy fire. In Welsh folklore, will-o'-the-wisps are glowing lights carried by mischievous spirits or fairies. Their sole purpose is to lure travelers deeper into the wilderness and to their doom. They flicker just out of reach, always appearing to offer help, but in reality leading victims off the safe path. Alice followed the lights, and they led her exactly where the fairies wanted. But why Alice? The answer lies in folklore. Fairies have a long tradition of abducting expectant mothers. They would steal the mother, or her unborn child, and leave a changeling behind. Sometimes the human child was raised by fairies. Sometimes the human mother was forced to raise fairy offspring. Alice, pregnant and vulnerable, was the perfect target. On Halloween night, with the veil at its weakest, the fairies struck. They orchestrated the crash with a changeling, lured her away with fairy lights, and abducted her into their world. What her parents found on the roadside wasn't their daughter at all. It was a changeling corpse left behind as a cruel imitation. The police, blind to the supernatural, called it a hit and run. But the truth was far stranger and far darker. Alice had been taken beyond the veil. That explains why Alice's parents kept hearing her voice on the phone even after she was gone. They weren't hallucinating. They were catching faint echoes of Alice as she was dragged across worlds. Her pleas were real, distorted across the thinning barrier between life and death. The mysterious couple could be fairy tricksters, feeding false hope to Maddie and Frank as they raced toward their daughter's fate. Or alternatively, they could be the folk of the fairy mounds from the Irish folklore. These are ancient, capricious beings who often masquerade as ordinary humans before revealing themselves to be deceptive, punishing, or even malevolent. They are seen as fierce guardians of their abodes, whether a fairy hill, a special tree, or a particular wood. It is believed that infringing on these spaces will cause them to retaliate in an effort to remove the people that invaded their homes. They would kidnap trespassers or replace their children with changelings as a punishment for transgressing. Alice trespassed their road, and they punished her by kidnapping her and her unborn baby and leaving a changeling in her place to punish her and her parents for the transgression. Which theory do you believe? Was Hallow Road a supernatural story, a tragedy of grief, or a cover-up gone wrong? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time,